me the cereal kids are crazy for. Cthulhu's. Start your morning madness with a bowl of morning happiness.
Cthulhu sale is ongoing now. You will take part. Save up to 33% off gym bundles. You will take part.
Crazy crispity. Crazy crunchity. Crazy crunch.
Select chests up to 50% off. You will take part. Boosters, avatars, wards, and more up to 50% off. You will take part. Party up with up to 3 times favor. Worshippers and XP. You will take part. This is your duty.
Crazy Cthulhu-y. Cthulhu. Surgeon General's warning, Cthulhu's are not of this world and should not be ingested by children or adults over the age of 80. Gems are not included as a prize because Cthulhu's are not real. Reality is meaningless, time is a construct. They not all hope when you ingest Cthulhu's. Use as directed, part of balanced breakfast. For the crispity, crunchity, crazy crunch, get cuckoo with Cthulhu.
You will take part.
Of a balanced breakfast.
Can we take a commercial break?
Good morning, Smite fans, and welcome back to some Smite esports action. It's week 4 of the Smite Challenger Circuit here on a lovely Thursday morning. J-Mac Tucker, Mifflin joining me for this one. We have Pandamonium taking on JustF6 for our first match of the day, our first SCC for the week. We got a lot of shakeups to talk about as it goes through, but let's take a look at the standings and the schedules for this week to kind of see what action that we have available for you guys. Looking at the schedule first, Pandamonium and JustF6, our match for today. Saturday, we'll have Elysium and Team Joystick, and then Goodnight Nick and Snake Hunters will be our post-SPL for the European side. For NA, tomorrow we'll have Tiburones and Sleekness, then Sturdy Artisans, Average Joes on Sunday, with Herculean Hooves and Winter Dogs to be our match after Sunday. And Midland, we got a little bit of a breakdown here with the standings. We get to see after 3 weeks of play, Elysium and Joystick still sitting at the top of the charts.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were kind of expected to be dominant this year. Elysium maybe a little bit more so. So once we do get to see these two teams square off, maybe Adapting finds himself a little bit of separation at the top of the board. Meanwhile, though, we got some equity at the bottom as well. 1 and 2 all the way down, and then, well, Goodnight Nick kind of sitting alone at 0-3.
Yeah, they've been having a really rough start for their first half of the split. Haven't really been able to kind of adjust to this new meta, and teams are just kind of, honestly, just outplaying them at this point when it comes to late game. It comes to the late game team fights, and they've really just been struggling. But the two we're going to talk about, Pandamonium and JustF6, for our matchup today. A lot of shakeup for Pandamonium. Their roster is kind of imploded after being the second seed last phase around. They've had a lot of adjustments to who's on their team, but only a couple of the originals remain for it. Kana still sitting in the solo lane, still going to be one of their pillars, but a little bit of a change-up. Joshi, who was their mid laner in previous sets, is now moving over to the Hunter role to make room for some new blood for the team.
New blood being Shoxy out of support. We've got Cherio, yeah, that Cherio, Egyptian Cherio, SPL Cherio, Penta Kid Cherio playing the jungle for this team, and Hawk moving from the ADC role to mid. I think this is a team that has a lot of potential, and this is going to be a little bit of a heat check for them. Both of these teams now, both Pandamonium and JustF6 sitting at 1 and 2 in the standings, so at least one of them going to walk away from the set at 2 and 2 with a 50% win rate, and I'm pretty pumped. I've got very high expectations for Cherio. We've seen what happens when some of these SPL players drop down a league. I'm looking at Adapting, I'm looking at Sino, now I'm looking at Cherio as well, kind of noticing they're all junglers as well. That's a lot of weight to carry. You've got that name recognition, you've got that history, that veteranship, the ability to play at the highest level of Smite. How many times has Cherio competed on the world stage? I think he should be able to perform here. Yeah,
and I believe Shoxy was Pandemonium's support previously, and then he was replaced with Emilzy, who's now moved over to Elysium, so now they have Shoxy back. So a little bit of a roster shuffle with him, but he's making his way back to the roster. It's going to be tough for them. Both these teams sitting at 1 and 2, been struggling when it comes to more of the late game. Well, that's because usually they've been facing off against Elysium and some of the other big hitters for the late game stages for it. JustF6, though, they've got the majority of their roster still here, or I should say pretty much all of it. Worst Turtle, Lestemics, Sodos, Toddy, and Rotwin going to be piloting for this team.
This is a team that has been playing together for a very long time at the SCC level and has been a team that has had similar struggles throughout the years. I would say that it's generally the early to mid game where this team finds themselves losing the majority of their matches that they do lose. And if they are able to work their way into that 25-30 minute mark, that's generally where I think this team really does come to fruition. It's that team fight phase when they're grouped as 5 that you really want to avoid. So Pandamonium maybe going to put the gas to them a little bit earlier on, and JustF6 looking to withstand the storm.
One of the stories that we always talk about when it comes to some of the teams is kind of their maturation process when they have a new team. So Pandamonium, they may be struggling a little bit here, even against JustF6. This might be kind of one of their best chances to practice that early mid-game. You have a newly formed roster that you're fighting up against. Go ahead and try some new and wacky things. See what you can get away with. See what kind of nonsensical stuff that you can pick to maybe try and make this early mid-game a little bit easier for yourself. That way you can get to that later stage that you really thrive in a little bit more.
That could be it. And, well, the early game is generally, in the past, and still a little bit so in Season 8, dictated by the junglers. I know the jungle's a little bit weaker, but it's Cherio. I expect them to be able to bring the pressure in the early.
Now, let's see what the picks and bans are going to look like for the SCC. EU SCC has done some wackier stuff in the past. We've been seeing the Sylvanas support pop through a little bit more often. That's kind of in both sets for the Smite Challenger circuit. But for EU, I know that I think it's Milzy was one who was really playing this one. I think Shoxy may have had a game of Sylvanas, but we'll see kind of how things adjust through. Here's the first bans come through, immediately targeting mid lane, making sure to take some shots at the new mid laner for the Team Hawk by taking the Giannis and the Tiamat away.
Meanwhile, on the other side, Pandamonium taking a peek at the front line. Yamoja and Odin taken off the table. Both gods that fundamentally change how you have to approach the match just because of the nature of cages, be it giant water walls or a legitimate ring of spears. It means that maybe you're looking at a phantom. Maybe you're looking to shut them down a little bit earlier. Maybe it makes it a little bit harder to fight around these objectives. I'm looking at you, Yamoja, with healing auto attacks, and Pandamonium don't seem like they want to deal with it.
And the final bans that will come through will be the Terra and the Osiris, making sure to take another support pick off the map and taking another aggressive jungler / solo laner off the map. There is still that flexibility over here with the SCC for that Osiris. First gods locked in will be the Fafnir, Kakulin, Soul as well, so there's a little bit of the early power spike that you do need for Pandamonium. Get something comfortable, whether it be for mid or for the Hunter role, and then get to the late game and, well, you've got a tower and objective and even potentially God Killer with that Soul.
Surprised to see Artemis go by the wayside. Gilgamesh still available as well. Both gods that have seen a lot of priority in the SPL, but instead, Hunter's locked in for JustF6, and that's On Her coming through. I like it. I think it's good aggression. I think that On Her being at the beginning of Season 8 as meta as he was, I don't think the itemization has really changed enough so to remove him from the meta. I think he's a little bit of a slept-on pick. Still has some of the best early aggression out of the Hunter role. Still has very good scaling. Desert's Fury is a surprisingly good melting tool for neutral objectives. I think this god has a lot left in the tank, especially in Season 8.
Yeah, a lot of boxing power. When you couple him with a Fafnir, good luck. If you get hammered at level 2, you're probably dead if you don't have Purification Beads. So I'm expecting immense amounts of aggression coming from the JustF6 dual lane, but they've got to answer to a Sobek on the flip side for it. Kakulin locked in means that's going over for solo lane. Sobek for their support and Soul to couple with that. Potentially for duo, potentially for mid. Still a little bit up in the air. First bans coming through for Pandamonium, Kali, and Hercules. Meanwhile, Heimdall and the Artemis that you were talking about banned away. So they're not 100% sold that this Soul was going to the dual lane, and indeed it's not. It's going to be Chernobog locked in.
Not often that Kali is a contested pick in a match, but Cherio and Worstturtle both really enjoy playing that god, and it seems like Pandamonium going to go ahead and take it off the table. Cherio going to go a little bit deeper in his god pool and forces JustF6 to do the exact same thing. Camazot's likely headed for the jungle, Fafnir clearly heading into the support, and Cerberus going to be in the side of the short lane.
Now all that's left is for Cherio's pick when it comes through for Pandamonium, and it will be the Serket locked in, who we've been seeing a little bit more often recently. Even with the rise of this warrior jungle, we've been seeing a few of these assassins start to peek through. Camazots and Serket, probably two of the more namely options.
I think Serket is legitimately just an incredibly strong pick. Has some of the best jungle clear in the game right now. Decent scaling, has the option to go into that tank tree with Pridwin and still get immense value from your damage, just because true damage is true. It doesn't really matter how much power you have. It's still going to deal at least a baseline good amount of damage. I think she scales incredibly well. We've seen Lazara have a lot of success on this pick, and, well, I've said it a couple times already, but that's Cherio, and I'm expecting him to do well.
Well, we'll see if he can do well for Pandamonium, JustF6 and Pandamonium for game number 1 of the EU SCC week number 4. Man, we're already 4 weeks in. The days have flown by, the weeks have flown by. Once again, it's J-Mac and Mifflin here for the games, and Doug, as always, will bring you the lovely action for us. And looking straight down across the builds, not seeing really anything out of the ordinary just yet. We're seeing Blink, Sunder, at least on the side for a Fafnir, making sure that Rotwin has some early aggression. Tainted Steel pickup for Kana, a little interesting early on, but does make sense when you're going up against a heavy self-sustained god like a Camazotz.
We do see Eye of the Jungle coming through for Cherio, which is an item that recently receives a buff. It's got decent kind of level up options. Generally, you're going to go for that Protector of the Jungle because percentage power and percentage defense is just a crazy stat line to find for yourselves. But even the other one that gives you a little bit more vision inside the jungle is incredibly strong as well. But it does come with some sacrifices. In the early game, you're losing out on a fair bit of sustain. You're not healing nearly as much from these camps, and instead, it's about the HP 5 on the item itself, and you're sacrificing a little bit of fight potential if you're considering Mannequin Scepter as that other option, and that is the option for Worst Turtle. In the early game, Cherio is just going to deal less damage.
Kana taking a lot of damage from Listemics. That early pressure for the Cerberus coming in big. It was kind of funny seeing both these solo laners. They cleared their camps, they walked in, and it was almost exact same time. Just call for a snap. All right, both of them blink right into the lane to make sure to get to that wave. Miss out on minimal creeps for themselves to make sure they can get maximum farm. Cherio already getting aggressive in mid, and unfortunately for Cherio, that may be the end of his life as he gets jumped off by Worst Turtle, but Hawk is putting some good damage in return. Can't get the final basics necessary. Needs one more, but the wall clips it and saves Worst Turtle for the moment. He has enough time to blink. Worst Turtle gets out, but Cherio wasn't as lucky. He does fall first blood, but he stuck around, and now Hawk may look to try and trade this out.
Bro, what are you doing?
No way!
JustF6 choke it in the very last second. Worst Turtle hovers barely in range, thinking that maybe he'd be able to hit the Vampiric Bats for max range, apply that slow. Well, not the case. Soto jumps in against a full Heat Soul at level 2. You better pray that your first ability kills him, and, well, that's not how it goes. So Hawk finds himself 2-0 and a complete level up on his opposition inside of Soto's. Pandamonium, despite losing first blood, come out very ahead there.
Yeah. Full Heat Soul, not just good for killing towers, also good for boxing and killing other gods. Just name one word, killing. Just don't fight into a even a level 2 soul with full heat. You can't make those kinds of mistakes. Worst Turtle, as you highlighted, stuck around just a little too long. He was out. He got the blink away. Leave. Go away. But instead, he decides to try and fight back and ends up falling, not just with him, but Sotos as well. So what ended up being just a 1 kill. All right, cool. We're out of here. No problem. Now they drop 2 over to Pandamonium.
Cherio tangling with Worst Turtle in the jungle. That's an aggressive jump in. Maybe an opportunity for Kana to chase that one out, but in the duo lane, it's fights.
Dash in for Joshi, looking for Toddy, but he's got his own leap to get away. Shoxy looking for a potential pluck, but instead he'll turn his sights towards the jungle and maybe force JustF6's hand to try and defend this purple, or they may have to defend their life. Shoxy gets impaled right back and clipped onto the wall, so Shoxy will take that clear away from JustF6. But now you see Hawk making an early rotation. Purple buff does get stolen away, and now Rotwin maybe in a little bit of danger with Hawk rotating over, but it seems as Pandamonium, they just want the buff, and now they're going to make their way out.
Should be a pretty easy disengage from there. And take a peek at the junglers. Despite falling for first blood, Cherio is very much still inside of this game, equal levels with Worst Turtle. And I don't know if you noticed, but that was a 2 minutes, 40 seconds, level 5 soul rotating to the duo lane. Hawk is sitting at a pretty nice lead. Does sacrifice a bit of his wave there, which is going to give Sotos the opportunity to close it back up. And a nice killer from Toady to prevent himself from being plucked.
That is ideal for him, making sure not just to block the pluck, but just kind of shove Foxy back and say, hey, you're a little too predictable. And that's one of the follies of a Sobek is you kind of know when they're going to pluck. It's when they've stopped kind of dealing with the wave, they start moving a little bit off to the side, and Sotos, he's got to use his Thunder Crash to get away from Hawk, so for Sotos, he'll be able to make it out, still holding on to his relic as well, and Worst Turtle's Blink now back online despite losing it earlier on.
Cherio seeing if maybe he can continue the chase into the jungle. Does throw a ward over the wall, spots out Sotos, but in that same note, Sotos spots him out, and that should spell the end of it unless we're looking at a dive.
Blink under the tower for Cherio. He's not going to throw the ultimate against Sotos, just gets his own ultimate. but still holding on to the purification beads, recognizing wasn't enough damage just yet from Cherio. Stemix throws his ult, trying to catch Kana, but misses. But back towards that mid lane, Cherio not utilizing his own ultimate, not going for it there. Didn't want to get maybe caught under that tier 1 tower and take too many shots. That
was a blink for Tycho Drums trade, and I'd say that potentially Sotos comes out ahead there. That's 2 minutes until Cherio's going to have that engage ability back and available for himself. But that said, all that pressure he's established by sending Sotos back to base and keeping Wursturtle under half creates an opportunity for Pandamonium to do exactly this. Invade the jungle, strip away a blue buff, the back camps, and even potentially the speed.
Oh, this could be a huge skirmish by the speed buff. We do see Cherio already there trying to clear this one out. Wursturtle rotates over and stops him immediately, hits him with the Vampire Bats just for good measure, good damage to put Cherio away. So unsuccessful speed buff invade by Cherio. I'm not sure he got a single minion with that either. I don't think he took even the 2 small creeps, so complete and kind of total time loss there for Cherio.
No, but he does the exact same thing to his opposition. Camazons is looking to keep it up, and Cherio jumping in aggressive could lose his life.
Could lose everything for it. Use the ultimate against Wursturtle to throw him away. Wursturtle does have the Bat Out of Hell, leaps on Cherio, gets some damage with the basics, may need that Bat Out of Hell if he can't close the distance. Vampire Bats clips the wall, and he's going to give up with that one. Cherio does manage to make it out despite the unfavorable fight at the Harpies.
So Wursturtle, instead of going to his speed buff, chases Cherio into his jungle, gets the Greater Scorpion at least, but Cherio farmed back camps, both of them, and now his speed buff as well, so despite losing out on time, he's looking just fine.
Hawk drops his ultimate in response to the Tycho drums to make sure he doesn't potentially get pulled back or pushed away with those fear or taunt drums. So ult for ult as far as the mid lane goes, no relics expended for it, and kind of one of the downsides of that Mannequin Scepter is because Wursturtle doesn't have that mana sustain, he only has enough for a couple of abilities to try and take down Cherio, and, well, because he threw one of them into the wall, and he doesn't have a whole lot of follow-up beyond there.
Yeah, so what did he do? He clears the Greater Scorpion, both back camps, the speed buff, and then immediately goes back to base because he's out of mana, and that's going to give Cherio even further separation, whose back camps have already started to respawn. That is a much better rotation. So Cherio, despite losing out on time, not able to invade the speed buff, does create a situation in which he's farming a little bit more efficiently.
Looking for a gank against Stemix here, taunts him back in, ultimate comes out, picks up just Cherio with it, and he'll leap back to the tower, but that's a win for Kana and Cherio. They both have their ults, or Cherio waiting for his to come back up just now, and they'll be able to invade the blue buff yet again, keeping that one away from Stemix, and you can see that experience disparity start to form in the solo lane. As Stemix is down, Cherio use his ult, and Wursturtle will now use a Bat Out of Hell for himself to run away, but Cherio is still on the hunt, has that blink. That might not be the best place to back Wursturtle.
Yeah, and he realizes it. That's why you keep that shop closed. Tony GR, on the other hand, trying to defend his own purple buff, and alone can only do so much. Joshi and Shoxy should have been able to strip that one away. Rotwin tries his best to seal it back with the hammer, but with Soto so far, there's no fight potential on the tail end. Hammer's down, tier 1's down, Pandamonium keeping pressure up.
Sotos gets caught in the middle of 2, but he gets off to the Tycho drums, looking to put some damage against Cherio and Hawk. He actually taunts Cherio right back into the dragon. Rotwin looking for any stun, manages to get the turnaround stun for 1 and take down Cherio.
Cherry sticking around a little bit too long there. Great usage of the Tycho drum to make sure that Fafnir damage does ring true. We saw Cherio try his best to juke within his own archers and maybe block a couple auto attacks from the Raijin, but that's all it does. Still leaves him in range for the follow-up jump, as well as all that damage from Fafnir's first ability, and at the end of the day, that is a tier 1 tower, plus purple buff invade, plus blue buff invade for Cherio's life. I think that Pandemonium is just fine with that trade.
Toddy trying to tempt fate with Shoxy just continues to egg him on, walking a little bit further closer and closer to that tower line, but he recognizes Joshi was completely out of mana and unable to do anything, even if he did get plucked.
Goodness.
So what does he lose? Probably wouldn't even care about using his beads because there was no follow-up potential from Joshi. Joshi didn't even have his ultimate online, so he could have gone back to base and made a rotation back in, even if that pluck did go through.
Shoxy able to keep his life afloat there, and Hawk trying to confirm himself some mid camps, is surrounded by 2, but Cherio rejoins the engagement and should push it a little bit in their favor.
Looking for a taunt against somebody, but he's going to get stunned immediately by Rotwin. Goes for the Cobra's Kiss, picks up 1. Joshi dives at the back against Sotos, trying to put some big damage on the mid laner, but the rest of the team is focused on Rotwin. They will be able to take him down thanks to the damage of the last breath and from the mid laner Hawk. So they do manage to get something out of that rotation.
They do, and with 4 members grouped up towards mid and potentially towards this Gold Fury, could open up the door for Pandamonium to look there, but instead it is a reset back to neutral. Cherio doing what he's been doing all game, which is just being annoying inside of Worst Turtle's jungle, stealing whatever he can. That said, Cherio has been playing very aggressively so far, looking for these tier 1 tower dives, looking for these invades, splitting very little farm within the lanes, which is all added up to Worst Turtle actually being the one with the XP lead, about a half level in favor of the Camozots.
And this is one of the downsides of fighting against the Soul is once Sodos and Rotwin got pushed out of that lane, once Rotwin's life fell to the wayside and Sodos had to go back to base, all it needed was 10, 15, not even seconds for Hawk to just immediately push that tier 1 tower down, so that safe haven is gone for them. 500 gold goes the way of Pandamonium. We saw Kana rotating over towards mid, looking like he wanted to maybe pick a fight or maybe go for the Gold Fury, but I guess there was just too much grouping from JustF6, too many people on that side of the map for them to try and safely go towards that objective.
Man, look at the XP across the board. We're talking 2 levels in the Soul lane for Kana. We're talking about a level and a half, maybe closer to 2 for Hawk as well in mid. We're talking 2 levels for Shoxy Foxy, a level for ADC. The only bit of equity is the jungle right now.
Feeds out of Toddy off the pluck from Shoxy, gets lurking in the waters, and the Dragon transformation from Rotwin. Immediately out of the water, Shoxy will retreat towards the jungle, and Joshi gonna make sure to force Rotwin away. Gets the D transform, so that means that cooldown will now be expended. But they got 3 ultimates burned from the duo lane, and on top of it, they come out with, at the very least, Toddy's beads.
Take a peek at these builds here, JMac, especially for Toddy GR, who's immediately going to the Light Blade. Could be an Aussie, could be a Kinsize, could be an Executioner, but it's not Odysseus's bow. It's not 40% attack speed and AoE damage for your team fight. Pandamonium, with Joshi already finishing that up, should be looking to force some fights inside of the jungle in neutral territory, particularly around this Gold Fury, and just utilize the fact that they have more AoE damage. It is a ton of utility that Odysseus bow is going to afford them that JustF6 just can't match.
Worst Turtle rotated over, at least to drop the blue buff, to make sure that Listemix could finally get one for himself. That's been a very hot point for them, but now with Toddy with no beads, that's a nice and easy kill for Cherio. Dives under the tower with the help of Shoxy to pick up Hunter, and now they could be looking for either another kill or looking to possibly set up for the Fury. Instead, they'll go for the fight. Worst Turtle gets plucked back, and he has no chance. The CC chain is just too much for Pandamonium. Supernova drops, and that forces Rotwin and Sodos back for a red buff invade out of Pandamonium.
Questionable decision-making there from Worst Turtle. He watched his team get dove and did the purple anyway. Cherio on the receiving end of Tycho Drum, and Sodos on the way to the Shadow Realm.
These plucks from Shoxy have been insane. That was 3 plucks, 3 kills, and that's all that you need as a support Sobek. Easily able to pick them up, and the CC chain is just too devastating for them. Just pluck immediately into Cobra's Kiss, and that's all the time frame that Pandamonium needs to just kill these enemy players. And now looking to kill some objectives as well. Gold Fury, because 3 people died, a nice and free pick for Pandamonium.
Yeah, that gold lead is ballooning out of control already, approaching that 5,000 gold mark, maybe closer to 4,700. Quick math. Don't ever do math on Cast JMac. It's the worst call you can make. I'm sure I'm completely wrong. But that said, 4,700. All right, feeling pretty good about that.
Nice.
7,000 experience, closer to
nice.
8,000. That's really where the lead lies. We were talking about those XP leads just a moment ago. Well, they've pushed themselves even further ahead. I don't want to do the complete level breakdown, but there's a lot. I mean, between maybe the largest separation for Hawk, 3 levels in mid, should be pretty indicative of the pace of this game.
Yeah, so forget about, how long it might take these teams to mature and get used to each other and kind of get the, their first game jitters out through. Pandamonium with their new roster is already coming out the gate swinging, as we highlighted. 5,000 gold lead, over 7,000, nearly 8,000 experience, and we're only 13 minutes in, Mifflin. Normally this is a level disparity and a golden XP that we see 20, 25 minutes in for some of these teams, but it's almost looking like an Elysium-style game where they just hit the ground running.
And they certainly have, and that doesn't mean that their scaling is half bad either. Soul is going to be incredibly strong in the late game. Chernobog has one of the best stims for an ADC possible. We know that Kana is going to be able to engage very well with this Cullen. Pandamonium's draft is still going to be getting much, much stronger over time.
Rotwin looking for anything. It's going to get the lurking in the waters from Shoxy. Worst Turtle dives in, but Joshi is peppering autos right back at him. Cherio rotates to make it at least a 3v4 potential, as Hawk was all the way back at the base, but no further fight from JustF6. All they got from that rotation, they burn the Sunders from Rotwin, they burn an ultimate out of Shoxy, but still looking to potentially turn this fight back around. Joshi ults in, and now all 5 from Pandamonium are here.
Cherio goes in alone with a leap and forces the taiko drum off of Sotos, who is quivering in fear, I have to assume, in that 4 versus 1 essentially against Cherio, and that's a huge bit of value that Cherio finds for his team. Taiko drum is legitimately one of the best comeback mechanics for JustF6 right now, and with very little CDR in the build, just about 0, and Sotos, it's going to be a little while till that's available.
Instead, now with that window of opportunity, Pandamonium will head towards the Pyromancer. They'll take that one for themselves, add a little bit more gold to their pocket, and further extend that already growing gold lead that they've amounted for themselves. And still, as far as experience goes, we see 3 levels continuing to rise for Hawk. Pluck against Sotos, holds on to his beads, and is able to Thunder Crash away. Toddy may not be so fortunate. Well, maybe actually he is. His Worst Turtle rotates over. Desert's Fury, good for a couple of shots, but not going to be enough. Cherio now stuck in the jungle waiting for somebody to walk through. He sees the ward drop from one of them, leap from Toddy. Cherio's still out for the time, but his hammer around the wall. Rotwin with a nice CC sets up, and Worst Turtle takes him.
Once Cherio walks into that little Draugr pit, he essentially forfeits his life. He's cornered now. He can't walk anywhere else, and gives the rest of JustF6 enough time to rotate in. Had the Fafnir not been there, it's very likely that Cherio does make it out alive. Ambush would have been up very shortly, but instead, that is one quick pick for JustF6, but it's not enough to find themselves climbing back. Gold Fury is still dead. Pyromancer is dead. There's no neutral objectives that are feasible on the map for them to utilize, while Cherio is still gone for about 10 seconds. So instead, just a reset back to neutral, and with that reset, maybe Worst Turtle is able to close up his XP gap, but yeah, I mean, that's it. You got to close up all the rest of it.
It may have been the best person they could have given that kill over to was Worst Turtle, because everybody else is so far ahead as far as Pandamonium goes, so giving it to the Hunter could have gotten Toddy that much closer to being against Joshi, getting that extra bounty. It could have put Sotos if he rotated over to get it. So, I don't know, maybe the next best to give it to would have been Rotwin as well, so I don't think Cherio's too upset about it, as he did force, what, 3 people to rotate over to kill him?
He did, but they didn't get anything off of it either, did they? I mean, Pyromancer was already dead, so it would have just been better if Cherio had survived, but it's just fine at this point. JustF6, though, aren't completely out of this game. They do have opportunities and pieces that can work with the deficit. As you highlighted, Worst Turtle not that far behind, can still be that assassin initiation like Cherio's doing.
That's a quick beads out of Sotos instantly from the first tick of the Cobra's kiss. Shoxy gonna have the Raiju thrown on him, and takes a little bit of damage from the Percussive Storm afterwards, but he's fine. They got the beads from the mid laner, and that's a huge win for Pandamonium.
Pandamonium grouping up around the Oni Fury as it is respawning very shortly, and I think JustF6 has to show up to this one. I mean, this gold gap is growing exponentially by the minute. Experience is taking a long time to close up as well. If this Oni Fury goes down, not only is it going to split the map with enhanced minion waves, but it's going to give them a little bit more of a lead. It's going to create an opportunity for Pandamonium to look at the largest neutral objective in the game, the Fire Giant itself. JustF6 can't let this one slip away. They have to put a defense up.
But just as quickly as they started grouping for that Fury, they immediately walk away, and that may be because the Oracle Vision was in control of JustF6, so maybe they wait for the cooldown of that to disappear before they try and make a turn towards that objective, but instead I'll eat my words, and then it'll immediately go back over towards the Oni Fury once everybody has regrouped. Even Kana has made a rotation. Look, Cherio's distracting 3 people by himself, meanwhile the rest of the team, Oni Fury, taken for Pandamonium, and Cherio is cackling in his seat right now as, you guys wasted all this time, but look, we got the Gold Fury, and they may not even get Cherio here. Vampire Bats misses, Sotos rotates over, now Joshi is looking for a cleanup kill in the back, finds Lestemics. Out of all of that, Cherio may just be able to make it out with his life.
Yeah, Cherry is one of the most mobile gods in the game right now, but should fall to the bat out of hell. Worst Turtle, finally credit for the kill.
But Worst Turtle's not going to make it out himself. Hawk managed to get him with the Supernova, and it's a 2-for-1 and a Fury trade because Cherio bought more time than anybody should ever have to deal with on that right side. They didn't even get the tier 1 tower. They dove 3 people to try and take him, and now Pandamonium sets up for the Fire Giant that they'll take because Kana is zoning everybody else away. Rotwin trying to get into the pit to see if he can deter this one, but it's going to be Pandamonium getting the Fire Giant and maybe getting Rotwin on the tail end of it. Dash in by Joshi, and Rotwin is dead to rights and gone.
So it was a 40-second chase on Cherio that does result in Cherio dying, but Oni Fury, Fire Giant, and now likely a tier 1 tower, even potentially a tier 2 going to go the way of Pandamonium. Gold lead rapidly approaching that 10,000 mark. Experience, we're already past that mark. 11,000 in favor of the Chaos team here. And JustF6 with, again, interesting decision making. It was Cherio just kind of pushing a tier 1 tower and 4 people rotate instead of going for the neutral objective. Maybe JustF6 a little bit wary of their ability to take a tried and true 5 versus 4 engagement because they knew Cherio was on the right clearly as they rotated there, and well, that wariness nets them a huge loss on the map.
I mean, they had the vision at the Fury. They should have
They knew.
known that
that
Pandamonium was there. So why did they rotate 3 people to try and take down Cherio, who's just defending a tier 1 tower in solo lane of all places? This isn't like you're defending the mid lane tier 2 to make sure that you at least have some map presence for yourself. But we'll have to hold that as Joshy and Hawk taking a bit of damage from the Tycho drums. Pillar drops for the Hunter, but not going to find anybody after that Fire Giant. Well, Cherio didn't get it because he was dead during the time, but they got tier 1 right side, they got tier 2 right side, and now they're able to make it out, it looked like, with a Pyromancer and their lives.
2 tier 2 towers still standing for JustF6, so 2 tier 2 towers will be attacked by Pandamonium very shortly. Fire Giant power play has got a couple of minutes left on it, so it's how good is JustF6 defense. And I'd argue it's pretty strong. They've got good beads burning potential from Lustimics. Rotwin is going to be very useful as space creation. I mean, in that most recent Dragon set, didn't we just see PBM channel the ultimate inside of Phoenix and say, hey, walk in, I dare you, and the enemy team did not want to. So that opportunity does rear its head for Rotwin as well. Then speaking of space control, Pillar as well, going to be very useful when the game simplifies to a 5-on-5 engagement like this, but they're not taking it. JustF6 on the right-hand side, maybe looking to take out a tier 1 tower of their own. Pandamonium have an exposed tier 2 absolutely for free.
Look at the build that Cherio's brought out, and this is why it took them so long to kill him, is he's basically gone, all right, I got my cool damage transcendence online for my first early few levels. Now we're just going straight tank beyond here, or more this bruiser-style Circuit. So has a lot of health, has a lot of protections. He can run around the map for as long as he wants, and potentially take a tier 2 tower by himself while the rest of his team start pushing up towards this left side.
Yeah, surprised to see him not go for the Pridwin with this build. Generally, you want that additional CDR a little bit sooner and protections both ways, not to mention the health shield as well. Could be an item he's thinking about picking up a little bit later on if this game goes much later on. Pandamonium 4 grouped with Fire Giant on the left-hand side, leaving Cherio to his own devices in mid. Could drag the attention of one member of JustF6, but then you've got one guy dealing with someone else who doesn't have Fire Giant, and you're already at such a deficit that I kind of favor Pandamonium in the 4v4.
Because Cherio doesn't have a lot of damage, it takes him a little while to get these structures. Shoxy gets the beats from Lustimics just off the pluck, but now Shoxy's the one in danger. He will fall down to Worst Turtle, but Lustimics is caught in the middle of 4. He gets burned down instantly. Ultimate out of Hawk is enough to take him down as Toddy leaps away. Joshy dives in the backline with the Living Nightmare. Has to use the Aegis instantly. Hawk picks up the double, make that a triple kill for him. And Cherio diving in the backline, tries to find Worst Turtle, but only gets the Purification beads and the Phoenix.
Yeah, Hawk essentially 100% HP after that engagement does not bode well for JustF6. 2 members still standing, and Bound Out of Hell still available for Worst Turtle. It's not quite over yet.
Cherio dives in, but not going to find anything off the leap. Instead, it'll just be a quick burn of the Phoenix. And Pandamonium, they got their prize. They got the left tier 2, mid tier 2, and now both Phoenixes in correlation with it. Only thing left standing on the map to try and defend is going to be this right side Phoenix, but I don't think Pandamonium cared too much about it. One more fight, and they could just run right to the Titan.
Fire Giant does wear off here, so Pandamonium taking a little bit of hit to their power, but maybe not to their gold coffers, because Gold Fury spawns just in time for them to pick up after taking out 2 tier 2 towers and 2 Phoenixes on the duo and mid the map here. So JustF6 find themselves in another precarious situation in which they've only got one objective they can defend, as you highlight, that right side Phoenix, but I don't think they can allow Pandamonium, and stop me if you heard this before, do this neutral objective for free. Fire Giant going to be spawning in about 40 seconds here. Yeah, JustF6 has to get in there. They're not favored in this fight. It's a long shot, maybe 9-1 odds if I'm being generous for JustF6 to be able to steal it or potentially win the team fight. But if Pandamonium gets the Fire Giant for all 5 members, I think it's like 10-0 odds on the defense of your Titan. So you got to take your fights where you can find them. JustF6 need to dig in their heels, and grouping up like this is a good start.
See if they can find anybody. Shoxy and Cherio will be the front line. That's not the easiest targets for them to get. Impale hits the wall, and instead now the fight is in Pandamonium's court. Pluck against Toddy, throws him into the back line. Joshi dives in the wall, and Toddy looks to try and box Hawk, but that's not the right person to try and go for. Kana picks up one. It's already 2 down. Make that a 3rd as Hawk picks up Lystemix. Rotwin caught in the midst. He'll leap over the wall, but Cherio's got a leap of his own, and will look to take him down. Worst Turtle has to back to try and defend because now they got minions pouring up every single lane, and it looks like Pandamonium may just be able to close out this game.
Rotwin commits the cardinal sin in that fight in that I'm looking at it, still got ultimate, and he's still got frenzy as well. His team is missing out on a large deal of DPS in that engagement. All Cherio has to do is stop his back because the Titan's falling quickly.
One lone Kamazatz is not enough to defend against 4 from Pandamonium. Instead, it'll be a pluck against him, and one more kill for good measure. Put Divine on the board for Hawk to get him his 9th kill in a row to close out game number 1.
Yeah, that build for Hawk is so strong as well, going for that Typhon's Fang and a Telkines. That last auto attack that we just saw, yeah, that was 350 damage landed into the chest of Worst Turtle. I want to see Pandamonium push it a little bit further, JustF6 rather, push it a little bit further in game 2.
Yeah, Pandamonium not looking like they have a brand new team. Looks like they've been playing with this squad for quite some time and make a nice standoff in game number 1 to take it to a victory. We're going to bring it to a break, and we'll come back to get set up for game number 2.
Smite! I love Smite!
Woo!
cereal kids are crazy for, Cthulhu's. Start your morning madness with a bowl of morning happiness.
Cthulhu sale is ongoing now. You will take part. Save up to 33% off gem bundles. You will take part.
Crazy crispity, crazy crunchity, crazy crunch.
Select chests up to 50% off. You will take part. Boosters, avatars, wards, and more up to 50% off. You will take part. Party up with up to 3 times favor. Worshippers and XP. You will take part. This is your duty.
Crazy Cthulhu-y, Cthulhu. Surgeon General's warning, Cthulhu's are not of this world and should not be ingested by children or adults over the age of 80. Gems are not included as a prize because Cthulhu's are not real. Reality is meaningless, time's a construct. Abandon all hope when you ingest Cthulhu's. Use as directed, part of balance practice. For the crispity, crunchity, crazy crunch, get cuckoo with Cthulhu.
You will take part.
Of a balanced breakfast.
Can we take a commercial break?
Number 1 is in the books for Pandamonium as they take a nice and decisive victory over JustF6. But as you saw highlighted by the beautiful ad, if you ever need to get any gems, now is the time to do so. There's so many skins, so many things available in Smite to you. And all it sometimes takes is just a few gems. You can get some of those on sale from now until September 6th, up to 33% off if there's anything out there that you may need. If you love Smite as much as we do, and I know you do, I know you and I love Smite as much as the next
Smite.
person for it, but it's going to be big gem sale, lots of skins, Cthulhu Tier 5. I think that's available now. I believe that patch went live for it, so you can now purchase it. It's a lot to get it.
You tell me you haven't bought it yet?
No, I've got it already.
Oh, so you know it's out.
Yeah, I know it's out. I'm alluding to maybe it's out, but no, it's
out.
100% out, and you should
Launch the
definitely
game.
get the skin. You should go out, buy some gems, that way you can get it, because you're going to need a lot in order to do so. But Game 1 is done for Pandamonium as they take a nice big win over JustF6, and now there's going to have to be some questions for JustF6. What kind of things are they going to need to adjust moving in towards Game 2?
I mean, it's pretty easy to address where that lead originated for Pandamonium, and it was blue buff invade into a blue buff invade into a purple buff invade into a red buff invade. So maybe a little bit more early game presence from JustF6 is going to be required here to deal with that onslaught. It's exactly what we talked about on that initial desk. JustF6 is a team that works at their best in the team fight phase, and by the time we got to the team fight phase, I'm not even sure necessarily that JustF6 really ever made it there, but by the time that we got there, the game got there, Pandamonium had already accrued such a lead that really JustF6 wasn't allowed to play.
And unfortunately for Rotwin, or maybe unfortunate for Rotwin's team, is in that very last team fight where they tried to make their presence known, he didn't use his ultimate, he didn't use his frenzy. So all of that fight that they had, and it started off really well for them, you lose out on that big ultimate, you lose out on the coerce damage that can come from it, and you lose out on the frenzy. With that, JustF6 able to take 3 down, then push up right side of the map, I guess technically right up the mid of the map, and eventually end the game.
Yeah, did you see Hawk in that last clip?
Yeah,
did it look like he was
undeterred.
struggling? Yeah, no, he was like a hot knife through butter there. Nobody was stopping him whatsoever. No damage comes his way, and 9-0-3 is your mid laner at the end of that one. Honk needs to find some pressure coming his way, especially considering what does Camazotz do? It's damage. That's all Camazotz does in the early game, in the late game, in the mid game. It's all damage. He's not CCing. He's not creating backline disruption, or he is, but it's with damage. I need to see some of that damage find its way home onto the main target here. And in Game 1, that was Hawk. And in Game 2, could also probably be Hawk.
Yeah,
Mids are so good.
You couldn't fool me that Camazotz does a lot of damage when you compare that to what Hawk was able to do in Game 1. 16,000, nearly 17,000 damage versus just the 7,000 that came out of Worst Turtle. So a little bit of a struggle on that Camazotz. We'll see if they can change it up for game number 2. Picks and bans are ready. We'll see if they make some adjustments for it. I got to imagine that Soul has got to be taken off the table, or JustF6 need to take it for themselves.
Well, you called it. JustF6 ban it out immediately. First step. Let's go ahead and deal with that Hawk. Don't want to have another 9-0-3 performance from the mid laner of Pandamonium. And Pandamonium sticking to their guns, it seems like, J-Mac. Yamoja removed from the table immediately. And in the first game, it was Odin in this next slot. I wouldn't be overly surprised to see them just go straight back to that.
They're going to take Sobek away as well. Shoxy just a little too good with those plucks. We saw it earlier at the Tier 1 tower. It was pluck, kill. Go to the purple buff, pluck, kill. Walk over to mid lane, pluck, kill. That was just the name of the game for this Sobek. They're going to make sure to take that away, take the soul, and interestingly enough, they're going to ban their own Raijin away here, leaving open for Tiamat and Morgan Le Fay for both being able to potentially be picked up by JustF6, and they're going to take their more favorable option with the Tiamat.
Tiamat locked in, Morgan Le Fay available, Artemis available, Gilgamesh still available as well. So Pandamonium have the pick of the litter with wherever they want to go. And I don't even necessarily think they need to go straight towards this Morgan Le Fay. Is second best in slot mage, but how many teams are running Tiamat solo, Morgan mid, or Tiamat mid, Morgan solo? One team.
One team once.
Yeah, like Aquarius, right? Like that's the guy playing Tiamat solo?
No. We saw it one time once in SPL, and that was it.
Word.
One
Okay.
time. And I don't think anybody else has done it since because it didn't do so well.
Yeah, you're losing out on a frontliner, but Pandemonium aren't concerned with those top picks, and instead Osiris Kakullen are the lock-ins. Still, both incredibly strong meta picks right now. Osiris likely headed to the jungle, Kakullen likely headed to the soul lane, but gotta think, man, Artemis, Gilgamesh, Morgan Le Fay, so many priority picks still on the table.
We'll see where JustF6 decide to go with it, with that Fafnir ban as well. Pandemonium are taking a shot at Rotwin, making sure that he has to go to something different. Will be this Terra. Now with the Cerberus locked in, that Terra very likely going over to the support role with Osiris Kakullen locked in. Now, if this was North America, I would say just slam the Gilgamesh right now, get all three of the big warriors and run the Gilgamesh support as we've seen a few times for it, but CU, they don't really like to do that kind of nonsensical stuff. Instead, they'll go with a little bit more of a tried and true. They'll lock Giannis in immediately, give that over to their mid laner, so a little bit of a swap from Soul to Giannis here.
Yeah, that's a good deal of global presence. You still have decent bursts. If it somehow miraculously ends up 2-0 at the first minute mark, could deal similar amounts of damage as we saw in Game 1. But we are seeing a little bit less early game pressure than I was hoping for from JustF6. Cerberus and Terra, both incredibly strong team fighters. Cerberus should be able to hold his own in lane, but Terra generally has a pretty slow start inside the lane. Tiamat, not exactly known for her early game presence either, has great scaling. Her mid game might be one of the best in the game as far as mages are concerned, but her early game not necessarily the strongest. On her though is shoring up that early game slightly here for JustF6, as we talked about earlier, has some of the best aggressive potential out of the Hunter role.
Some jungle bans away. They're going to take Loki and Camazotz. Meanwhile, flip side, Artemis and Chernobog taken away. So a lot of Game 1's gods have now just been stripped away entirely. I think we see 4, 5 of those gods that were picked in the last game. No matter which team it was, they're being taken away. I don't even care about the Arnher, Fenrir, whatever, Rom, who cares? Kumbha Karn locked in.
Has good potential into Tiamat, has good potential into Cerberus and Fenrir. They all have channeled abilities that you can just immediately cancel out with the Mez. Epic Uppercut is a really good tool to straight up remove somebody from a team fight. So if you've got a problem like Terra in your backline, well, take her away from your backline. If Fenrir is running havoc back there, Epic Uppercut, walk away. All of a sudden he's going to have to spend the majority of his time trying to catch back up to the engagement itself. I think that Kumbha is an interesting pick. It's one that we don't see too often, but taking a peek at this roster of Pandemonium, it's a lot of frontline presence, and you probably want a little bit of peel for your squad, and Kumbha has that in spades.
Well, one good thing that you have for them is a Giannis. He makes for good self-peel and good team peel as well with those portals. So they got a lot of damage, a lot of peel, and just a lot of frontline here for Pandemonium. Game number 2 underway, and we'll see if JustF6 can make a bit of a comeback here for their second game. Not the greatest Game 1 performance. They had Hawk just kind of run rampant for the majority of the game. We did see that first blood go the way of JustF6. They did manage to kill Cherio as he was being a little too aggressive in mid, and then they kind of threw a fight by a red buff, and from there it was all the easier for Hawk.
Yeah, Hawk was essentially handed his first 2 kills of that match, and JustF6 likely not going to make that exact same mistake this time around. We do have a little bit of a reversal here. It's Cherio picking up the Mannequin Scepter, and Worst Turtle going for the Eye of the Jungle very early on. Fenrir doesn't really benefit overly so from some of these other items, but generally when we do see Fenrir get locked in the jungle in the European SCC, it's kind of that stone-cutting sword route, which would have made sense with Mannequin Scepter. Makes me think Worst Turtle really does have his eyes on that more bruiser-style build, likely going to be a Pridwin selected very early on.
Similar kind of what Chariot was building last game, where he goes for a little bit of damage earlier on. He had a Transcendence Rush, and then went for a Wing Blade for, well, Wing Blade's good. They got some slows on the flip side, and then immediately just goes more into the tanky option. Fenrir is no stranger to it. He was another one of those assassin support gods that kind of came through for a while with the Circuit, and the Najal was another option for it, but instead now we're able to run a fairly nice bruiser jungle for themselves. Sotos falls through the portal, taking quite a lot of damage from Hawk. Cherio then have the follow-up response for a potential kill, but man, Soto's feeling a little bit of the pain.
I like what Worst Turtle did there. He immediately started to walk forward once he saw that Sodos was in a little bit of trouble, just to create the space and make sure this Tiamat was able to walk out. Had Cherio been allowed the space to walk forward, maybe even 10 units on the map, likely would have spelled the death of Sodos. So heads up play from the Fenrir already.
Wall misses from Toddy, not going to get the stun. Instead, he gets a lot of return fire damage back against him as Joshi is continuing to pepper autos against him. Even under that tier 1 tower, Toddy was standing just a little too far forward, and it was just basic after basic after basic from Joshi, able to put him down to near half health. Luckily for him, he does have a Terra, so he'll be able to sustain under the tier 1 tower. Rotwin does get one stun, but immediately rooted in place, and Rotwin takes a good chunk of damage. Toddy leaps in, trying to get some damage against Joshi. Shoxy making sure he gets some good body blocks for his Hunter.
Well played. Meanwhile, in mid, Soto's putting the pressure onto this Yanis, and that is generally how you expect this 1v1 to go. Yanis has to dedicate his mobility ability if he wants to lock down any significant amount of damage on a Sotos, which would leave him very susceptible to a gank from Fenrir, which means that really Hawk is only really allowed to use 2, maybe 3 of his abilities inside of the lane. Means that he's likely going to lose out on a fair deal of pressure. Meanwhile, though, speaking of pressure, look at where Cherio is, just stripping all of the jungle.
He's going immediately to the red buff, and Sotos may or may not
stop
even
him.
know about it. Cherio takes down one buff, may be looking for a second one, or could be looking for a gank potential if Toddy or Rotwin step too far out. Instead, he'll immediately set his sights towards purple buff and strip that one away from JustF6 to make sure that they don't have that buff control.
Man, this is the issue that JustF6 had last time around. They allowed Pandamonium to just steal too many of their buffs. So take a peek at Worst Turtle. Knowing that this red and purple have been invaded, he is going into Cherio's side of the jungle, but back camps may be all he's allowed to pick up. Blue buff already cleared out by Pandamonium means that speed's going to go the way of Pandamonium as well. So that's a red buff, purple buff, green buff, and back camp stolen by Pandamonium in trade for 2 back camps in favor of JustF6.
And it's not even 2 full-size back camps. It's 1 large back camp and then 2 mini harpies off to the side. Nowhere near the level of trade-off that Cherio was able to get for his team. They are still sitting relatively even in experience, maybe a quarter, half level in favor of Cherio over Worst Turtle, but stripping away a red and a purple, that's going to put the mid laner behind in damage. That's going to put their Hunter behind, well, in attack speed, which inherently also means behind in damage as well.
And it significantly put behind Worst Turtle's rotation to his own speed buff. It's about halfway or a quarter of the way respawn for Pandemonium, whereas Worst Turtle just now drops his own, sacrifices a good deal of farm there. It means that Cherio is going to have a much easier time clearing out his camps and then looking for subsequent invades. But it's a rhetoric I've had since the beginning of the SBL, or my tenure here at the SBL, and it's not one invade makes for a lead. It's what you're able to do with those timers. I want to see Pandemonium keep up this pressure around the red buff.
Worst Turtle's trying to make a path towards this left side. Cherio as well on rotation. Maybe we might see a potential fight for them. Worst Turtle does have ultimate now, will pick up Shoxy and bring him back to the clutch of the rest of the team, but he's the only one that's level 5 for the team. It's going to be a Mez, gets the Sleepy Time passive out. Shoxy will fall down. Rotwin did turn around to get the final basic. Through space and time from Hawk, looking for a potential rotation over, but instead he'll just go for the clear stun for Cherio. Toddy just managed to make it out for a moment, but Cherio has the flail to take him down.
Did Toddy start Desert Fury to immune the tether, canceled it early, got stunned by the tether, then is forced to use his beads, and then died anyway? Major misplay from the on her there that lose out on every single bit of his utility in trade for a support's life, and Soto's trying to defend his red buff, loses that and his beads.
One red buff invade led to a purple invade and led to another red and purple invade off of those kills. So it's not just the one. Well, Kana, he's going to have to run as fast as he can, but he's not going to be able to outpace Worst Turtle and Lystemix. Lystemix blinking over, but Shoxy rotates over, and one big Mez stops it in its place. Kana manages to make it out off a perfect rotation from Shoxy.
And Shoxy lets him know with the VEL laugh spam as they walk away with their tails tucked. And that's that peel potential we were talking about during the P's and B's. Kumba might be a little bit off meta, might be a little bit off kilter, but certainly still has some utility he can bring to the team, and it's put clearly on display there. That Mez was massive and maintains Kana's life.
And he still had ultimate, so even if the beads go through, and somehow if Worst Turtle even had beads, but he didn't because of the fight over in left lane, if he manages the beads, waits a couple seconds, and before he even has the opportunity to try and leap again against Kana, Epic Uppercut was waiting for him just in case. So Shoxy, with that rotation, saves Kana's life, makes sure that Worst Turtle feels the pain of what it feels like to sit and not play Smite for a few seconds.
And where does that leave us on the map? 1 level lead in the jungle, 1 level lead in ADC, and 1 level in mid, all in favor of Pandamonium. JustF6 are doing a fair bit more fighting in the early game. They're trying to defend their own buffs. They're getting proactive, but have not hit pay dirt often enough. And as of right now, it's Toddy GR in the retreat. Rama, despite being the less aggressive of the 2 hunter selections, is the one aggressing in lane.
Yeah, you couldn't fool me with this matchup right here. I mean, it has been non-stop aggression from Joshi and Shoxy out of the duo lane, making sure to continue attempting to punish Rotwin and Toddy for even thinking about stepping up and trying to go for a fight. Worsturtle, recognizing the previous invades, he's going to go ahead and drop the purple buff for his team to make sure and confirm 1 buff, but the red is still down, and unless we see a really heavy aggression push for Pandamonium, which it looks like they're going for here, red buff will go the way of JustF6, but they're not wanting to go for the fight as Rotwin and Worsturtle both trying to run out.
Hawk does a ton of damage inside of that engagement directly onto Worsturtle, and Worsturtle was not confident enough to try and isolate this Yanis all on his own, so Hawk gets to walk out of there scot-free. Good rotations, though, from JustF6 to finally get their red buff back. That would have been the 3rd invade successful for Pandamonium had they selected to take that buff. Instead, JustF6 are forced to split it a little bit inefficiently. It was a 3 split on the red buff and a 2 split on the purple between the ADC and the jungle, which means that farm maybe not the most efficient, but still much better than having it stolen.
It's interesting to see that Hawk has gone for the Charon's coin
no way.
comparatively to the Chronos pendant on the flip side. We'll hold that thought as Gold Fury started up, but Toddy rotates over and makes sure to stop that one in its tracks. Shoxy gets a 2-man mez, 1 on the Sotos and 1 against Rotwin, but that'll be the end of that, just making sure to get the rest of his team out. We almost saw a cheeky little Gold Fury start up there by Pandamonium, but luckily for Toddy, he's able to spot that one out and make sure to push him away.
And that was not a very long time that 2 members of Pandamonium were slamming the Gold Fury. It was Cherio and Joshi trading aggro, and they dropped it down to about 30-ish% HP in just under 10 seconds. That is the power of double Icavale this early in the game, and Manic and Scepter also doing a good bit of the heavy lifting there. Means that Pandamonium have shown their hand. They have shown the fact to JustF6 that given the opportunity, given just a couple of moments with the Gold Fury, they can shred it already 8.5 minutes into this game.
Trying to go back to the point I was getting with mid is that Hawk has gone for the Charon's coin, so going for a more damage option where normally you would see something like Chronos Pendant for extra cooldowns, and Sotos is the one who's going for cooldown with the Chronos Pendant compared to where you normally see the Charon's coin. But again, as we try and make any points about mid laners, they say, hey, we're talking about dual lane over here. Rotwin used the Earthen Fury to try and get a chase against Joshi, but he's not going to be able to close the gap. Worsturtle gets the brutalized. Joshi not going to make it out of there. Just a little too much damage. I think that Earthen Fury kicked in at the last second for him. Worsturtle able to pick up 1 and push Pandamonium back towards tier 1. That sets up for the Gold Fury, but there's still a few members of Pandamonium sneaking around here.
It's a slow rotation from Pandamonium. Shoxy and Cherry in first.
It's going to be a double root. JustF6 gets the Gold Fury through space and time, just misses. But now Kana is here through the portal. He will go, find Sotos caught out by himself, has to leap away, uses his own knockup, but now with that ultimate, Hawk makes it right into the team fight, able to pick up 1, maybe a second. But the Ragnarok from Worsturtle is available, and he'll use it just to get away.
Cherio able to strip away the purple buff on the opposite side as well, so reacquiring those timers are Pandamonium. Gold Fury, though, does go the way of JustF6 for the first time this set, finding themselves in the lead insofar as gold, and maybe not very long-lived. Tier 1 tower swings that all the way back in Pandamonium's favor, but it is a paltry sum that Pandamonium find in their pockets. Only 300 or so gold in the lead. Experience a little bit more so, though, closer to that 3,000 mark, and, well, that's a good deal already 10 minutes in.
Yeah, game number 1, we were seeing near 5,000 gold at this point in the game, so JustF6 are holding on to this a little bit more. I don't even know what I was trying to say. They're holding on a little bit better this game. That's where I was trying to go.
They firmly grasped it.
In their hand, this lead.
Yes.
Yes, they've got
firmly.
it. Which
Well, they don't have a lead.
Well, they firmly grasp at least stability in their I can't even say in their favor because Pandamonium had the gold lead, but a much stronger performance out of them than game number 1, where game 1 it just kind of spiraled out of control. It took a double kill for old mid laner Hawk to be able to get that through, but so we attempting to get back into the action here for you. Sorry about that. We'll make sure to get back quickly for it, but holding themselves in this game. That's firmly. That's the point we were going back with it. Is JustF6 are holding on to it. They're making sure to fight back this time. And we see that with this Gold Fury started up, where last time they just kind of let the Gold Fury fall by the wayside. Now they make an aggressive play towards it. They get it. They lose a Tier 1 tower in response, but I like to see the activism from JustF6 this game.
Yeah, JustF6 and specifically Worst Turtle, I think, is having a much better performance here in Game 2. This Fenrir is constantly getting involved, as on display here. Picks up the kill on Kana inside of his own tower. Is going to force the rotation from Pandamonium. Ultimate used by Hawk, but no follow-up. Nobody going to travel through it. Cherio does not love his odds in the 1 versus 3.
And Cherio immediately has to walk back, and he'll go all the way back to the depths of the tower, as there are 4 JustF6 players lurking around this right side of the map. 3 of them might be looking for Cherio's life. He's got his ultimate, but Cherio, I don't think you realize what just happened. Kana just fell, and now it may be you in response. Cherio uses the tether just to get a little bit of reduction, but doesn't matter. He's got an ultimate for Worst Turtle. That'll take him down. Another kill on the board for the jungler.
Yeah, Worst Turtle is just doing so much more now than Cherio is his level. We got the 2-level lead, 3-0 for the Fenrir. Going towards that Bruiser build isn't really taking too much of a hit in the damage department, as Void Shield is pretty impactful at this point of the game, as we've seen from this Brutalize doing about 70% of anybody's HP bar. That said, once Shoxy Foxy rotates in, I don't think Brutalize is going to get a ton of value.
Oh no, Sotos is done as soon as he hits the ground. Hawk manages to take him down thanks to the help of Shoxy's epic uppercut, and Hawk is going to aggressively portal into the middle of the lane, I guess recognizing that Worst Turtle didn't have his ultimate because he used it previously on the right side of the map. So, I mean, more power to you, but that's not a play that I would go for. I would not be portaling aggressively in 3 people.
No, not at this point in the game, certainly, but Hawk does at least set up for the kill on Sotos and finds credit for himself, and Sotos holds on to the ultimate, holds on to the beads, and does not hold on to his life, creating an opportunity for Pandamonium to look at another neutral objective. Pyromancer burning very quickly, and nobody from JustF6 in range to defend, so it's going to go the way of the Chaos team. It's all up to Worst Turtle now, I think, to be the root of aggression for his squad. He's the only one with a pretty sizable lead. He's got great initiation, has both relics available. I think if we see JustF6 get a neutral objective in the near future, like with Sony Fury, it's going to be off the back of a pick from this Fenrir.
Joshi has his beads available, doesn't need to use them because it's not a stun. Instead, it's just a dash from Rotwind to try and get some damage against him. Ultimate from Hawk, however, has been expended, thinking that there might be something further, but all it was just 1 dash in. How you doing, buddy? All right, I'm going back to farming, and immediately Rotwind and Toddy will utilize that opportunity to try and get a little bit further ahead in this lane, making sure to keep Joshi backed up to that Tier 1.
Yeah, Hawk has been kind of just freeballing these ultimates, huh? Just throwing them out whenever he feels like heading in the right lane and the left lane. I can think of a couple reasons why not, but it hasn't come up just yet. He's 3 levels in the lead. I'm not going to question him at all, as he's already got the Sands of Time and the Spear of Desolation, a fair bit of CDR ringing to his name as well, so can do just about no wrong on the map. But you are losing out on a large confirmation tool on these objectives. You are losing out on your ability to rotate aggressively if you keep using it reactively as such. But Hawk hasn't really had it come up just yet. Doesn't even need it for the CC immunity, as put on display by the fact that I'm pretty sure his beads have been up the entire game, and he's feeling so confident, in fact, he went for Blink.
Wow. Mid lane Blink.
Yeah.
When you're this far ahead, might as well go for the, might as well risk it for the biscuit here. As he picks up that relic and looking towards a little bit of lifesteal in his build as well. Could be going for some CDR via the Soul Gem, or maybe be looking over towards that Pythagram's piece that we've been seeing picked up a little bit more often from some of the mid laners. I think Hurrywin has been one who's been picking this up for his Giannis's. I think he's even picked it up a couple times with Tiamat as well.
Yeah, he just loves that item, Hurrywin. I mean,
he's a team player.
It's got great aura on it, great survivability, and it fits his god pool incredibly well. Pandemonium now rotating in, catching JustF6 inside of the Gold Fury.
Shoxy catches 2 with the Mez, 2 with the Root. Lystemix uses his own ultimate, but it's only going to catch Kana, and he just threw a raged Cucullin in the midst of everybody. Warcry is enough to help take down 1. Joshi gets the credit for the kill. Worst Turtle falls through the portal, and Cherio is boxing 2 by himself, but he's going to need a little bit more backup if he wants to get a kill. Toddy takes him down. Shoxy dives to the back line looking for somebody. Rotwind gets caught on his teammate's own pillar, and Hawk puts him down.
That is a clean fight in favor of Pandemonium. Cherio does choke that very last kill, does get the tether stun onto Sotos, who was about 1 auto attack from dead, and Sotos still draws life. That said, Cherio created infinite space for his team, essentially zoning 3 members of JustF6, while Pandemonium was able to systemically take apart the entirety of JustF6, and now the Oni Fury as well. Desynced neutral objectives means that next time around when Pyromancer respawns and if Pandamonium is the aggressor on it, they don't have to worry about a Gold Fury response from JustF6. Instead, it's going to come down to a tried and true team fight. And so far in this set, JustF6 has shown a propensity to not super love the 5-on-5 engagement.
Wursturtle will rotate over and take the blue, and now the rest of the team has to worry about the threat of a potential Fire Giant. It's still early in the game. The goal hasn't spiraled out of control just yet, and the lead hasn't exacerbated anywhere nearly what it was last game, but Pandamonium do still have potential for Fire Giant burn. They've got a Mannequin Scepter for Cherio, and that's going to do a lot of damage to those objectives. That 3 times damage to anything in the jungle that's not a player, at least, in that instance. So they have to be careful, and immediately we need to see some ward coverage for them, and so far I'm only seeing one, and it's at that Pyromancer.
J-Mac, do my eyes deceive me? Does Soto still have beads and Aegis after that fight? That's crazy. Does survive it, so maybe not too bad, but maybe would have allowed him to play a little bit more aggressively and peel for his team had he decided to use those relics. Speaking of aggressive play, Cherio now surrounded by 2.
Toddy through the portal, used the Aegis as quickly as he can, but Hawk has the shotgun with the ultimate and takes him down into the sky. Goes Wursturtle, he'll land right back in a portal, but it looks like Hawk actually took his own portal away. Wursturtle, because of it, able to capitalize and take down Joshi. Now Hawk trying to take down Rotwin as he dashes under the tower. Sotos gets caught in the portal and an unstable vortex to boot. Gets the beads and the Aegis from the mid laner, and Shoxy takes him down immediately after. Rotwin's in danger because Kana's rotated in the rage form, and they managed to pick up a 3-for-1 trade.
Look, you banned the soul, but you didn't deal with the player. Hawk is still going undeterred, free casting inside of every single one of these engagements. 4-0-3 is the Yanis.
Goes in, but immediately mezzed away by Shoxy. Looking for the kill,
Nice
will
shot.
find Cherio with the spit through the portal. Hawk will travel to get away from Wursturtle, and he's now forced to leap away. But Stemix is still looking for more. He'll get mezzed again by Shoxy, and Kana will make sure to play zone to keep the solo laner off of his support.
Wursturtle still hovering in the jungle, could rotate his way back into this engagement, and it is a Pridwin selection for Wursturtle, so he is now officially a bona fide frontliner for his team. Has to be the initiator, as he is the sole keeper of the lead for his squad here. 2 levels over Cherio inside of the jungle, and a red buff invade to boot. What is JustF6 up to on the map? Rotating over to the right-hand side, maybe seeing if they can get a sneaky pyro.
Aiming for it, but there are 3 on this right side of the map. Kana, Hawk, and Shoxy
No
rotating over. Hawk, he's going to get ready to get set up for it. They know that they're at the Pyromancer, and instead of the objective now, they're looking for the fight. Rotwin gets caught. He's going to get away from the root from the Groggy Strike, but Lestemix finds Joshi on the right side thanks to the help of Wursturtle.
Sotos, though, doesn't have that same amount of help, and it is an engagement from Hawk and Shoxy.
Through the portal, he goes to the ground, and not quite to the grave just yet. Shoxy will throw him in the sky, and for good measure, get the final basic to take him down. Now, Toddy and Rotwin have teamed up to try and see if they can push Pandamonium away. Hawk will take his own portal to go back to the safety of the mid lane, and so will Shoxy and Kana, so they trade out 1-for-1 mid for their Hunter.
Yeah, I just think that Joshi isn't the reason Pandamonium are coming out ahead in these engagements, right? I think it's pretty clear what the reason is, and it's Hawk. Hawk is going big for his team right now, 4-0-4 with the help of Shoxy Foxy, who's 2-1-6. These guys have been connected at the hip, essentially, this game. This Kumba is on complete Yanis duty, just peeling out for his squad, and no one from JustF6 seems to have the confidence to step up to that power couple. So Pandamonium is benefiting from having an unkillable Yanis, and that simply cannot be the case if JustF6 want to win out in this game.
That's how it was in Game 1, however, with the Soul. It was an unkillable Soul. They could never get to the backline. Now JustF6, they can make it to that backline, but they're focusing the wrong target. Like you highlighted, Joshi's not the problem. He's 1-3. Cool. It's a ROM. He's going to get to late game. He's going to be full build with the very cheap bow build that's become so meta for it.
So cheap.
But meanwhile, you have Hawk on a flip end. 4-0-4. 2-1-6 for Shoxy, been part of 8 of the 9 kills that this team has had. Yeah, I think we know where the problem is now. It's up to JustF6 to capitalize and try and deal with that problem.
And it's a 2-pronged issue here for JustF6, who have left Isotos alone for the entirety of the game. Sure, Hawk's huge. You don't want to go into that lane. That makes sense to me, but Isotos on this Tiamat is one of your win conditions. It's one of the best gods in the game, if not the best god in the game. Kind of want him to come in at least even to the late game team fight, but instead it's a 2-level deficit favoring Hawk because legitimately Sotos has been left alone on a mid lane island, and well, his slash line is reflecting how he feels about that. 1-4 for the Tiamat.
an upgraded Curse Donk available for Shoxy, so as soon as that Earth and Fury goes out, he can pop that relic and as many people as he's surrounded by and get a lot of damage in return. Shoxy used the ultimate against Worst Turtle to push him in the sky so the rest of his team can retreat back towards the safety of their end of the jungle. Gold Fury is back up, and well, all the while, Cherio sneaks a Pyromancer because the rest of the team was busy.
Huge.
Ragnarok is good. They drag Hawk right to the clutch of Sotos to help take him down. Now, without their mid laner, they're lacking a huge amount of damage for it, and because of it, Sotos able to pick up a double kill and maybe more off the tail end as they turn sights towards the mid lane tower.
Massive play there for JustF6. Worst Turtle making the best of a bad situation, isolates the issue, and puts Hawk in the dead realm for about 40 seconds. My man's going to have to watch the game from the grayscale screen for just under a minute now, and JustF6 5 strong are going for the Fire Giant.
We'll start it up. 3 from Pandamonium surging forward. Shoxy and Cherio at the front line, but Cherio is only level 16 on this Osiris. He's going to realistically only have damage available, but he has to use Lord of the Afterlife as a retreat. Shoxy cannot find a hole in the gap to try and make his way into the fight. He keeps getting zoned away at the pit. Gets at least the Mez against Sotos. Fire Giant has not been leashed. Rotwin gets stuck inside. He gets Mez in place, so he can't get the dash out. He'll fall down. Shoxy picks up 1. And for the moment, able to make it away, but 2 immediately turn, gets a double Mez, beads away from Toddy, Sotos, and Lissandra will capitalize, but Hawk with the through space in time takes down 1. Sotos able to get the last hit against Shoxy, and Joshi and Hawk have now joined the fray, and Listemics picks him up.
Hawk still alive on the edge of this engagement, is being gone on, but re-engages to find Sotos.
Sotos is gone. Kana picks him up. Worst Turtle at least trades it out and grabs Cherio, but Kana is now on the hunt for Worst Turtle as he has no mana available. 1 more basic is all that he needs, and Hawk, he'll go through the portal to try and get back to safety. Big heal from the Soul Gem. Listemics with a nice stun from the Spit, but it's only him to try and fight against the 2, and Hawk is just a little too slippery.
JustF6 just lost the thread there on that Fire Giant siege, and, well, Shoxy Foxy somehow was able to just stop it on his own. Cherio essentially just kind of walks near the Fire Giant and is able to distract a couple of members in his own right, but MVP of that fight has to go to either Shoxy Foxy for single-handedly stopping the Fire Giant and setting up a kill for himself, or maybe Hawk for hitting a, I don't know, 500-yard ultimate from his own base to shut down Toddy. That is a tough situation for JustF6 to find themselves in after fighting tooth and nail for their lives legitimately to find a pick on the Hawk, to immediately have Hawk respawn and then completely swing the team fight back in favor of Pandamonium. Does find themselves, both teams now, at a neutral state, and gold only about 3,000 in favor of Pandamonium, but it feels like the momentum might be swinging the way of the Chaos team, and the grouping as well, as they've already set up defensive positioning around the fire.
You know, wards have already dropped for Pandamonium. Listemics will get a stun against Kana just to show him that he's there, and really that's about it. And Rotwin may have stepped a little far forward as Cherio spots him. Gets a little bit of poke damage, but nothing that Rotwin is too terrified of. So he'll regroup with his fellow frontliner, but you already see the ward control. Well, it was in favor of Pandamonium, but JustF6 will drop their own sentry and take 1 down. Now looking towards Kana, gets a nice stun and forces Kana to leap away. Worst Turtle going for the ultimate, but he bites Joshi as soon as he goes up in the sky, looking for the snipes, but he doesn't need it because Hawk has one of his own, uses the Unstable Vortex to take down 1. Shoxy sends another to the sky through space and time, misses because of it, however, and now Kana is in danger. Listemics chasing him. Kana will fall down to Listemics, but they've already lost 2. Toddy and Worst Turtle gone, and make that 3 as Sotos falls to Shoxy.
Can't help but notice that Hawk is still full HP. Kind of makes me feel like Pandamonium is going to win out on this team fight. Rotwin and Listemics on the retreat, and, well, not for much longer. Cherio's going to keep you infinitely slowed, but great wall!
The wall from Rotwin may have just saved his life for the time being, as he and Listemics will manage to make it back to the Tier 2 tower, but all the momentum swings back for Pandamonium. They still got both their carries, and this Fire Giant, well, it's still up, and immediately Pandamonium starts surging towards it.
Joshi does not have the crit build, so it is going to take a little bit longer to clear out the Fire Giant itself. Not often you get to see a mid laner act as the zoner here, but Hawk's damage seems to be enough to keep Rotwin at bay.
Rotwin got clipped by the Unstable Vortex. Now Listemics has to leap away. Rotwin gets hit again, falls through the portal, and that's going to be all she wrote as Hawk puts him in the dirt with 1 more basic, and the ultimate. Joshi gets knocked up by the Fire Giant. Hawk picks up a double kill, and, well, that's going to be the call for Pandamonium to make their way towards it. Immediately, Joshi has to Aegis because he was going to die otherwise to it. Fire Giant goes the way of Pandamonium after a delayed deicide.
I believe that's a double-double for Hawk. Picks up a double in the initial engagement and at the tail end as well. Finds himself at a very similar slash line to what we saw in Game 1. 9 1-7 for the mid laner on Pandamonium. And point of contention, we said earlier on, or at least I did, I was expecting Cherio to be the one carrying this team, right? The Penta Kid, the SPL King, the young talent from Egypt. No. This is Hawk through and through, making his stamp known here. Pandamonium, well, they should be writing him a thank you card.
Step aside, old man. The new blood is here, and Hawk is going to be the one to carry this team forward. 9-1-7. He was 9-0 in game number 1. Yeah, I think when we're talking about Pandamonium in the future, we should be looking at the picks and bans against Hawk specifically. The Soul, great performance game 1. The Giannis, just as good in game number 2, if maybe not better, because, well, he ended the game 9-0 previously. He still has more kills he can go for in this game to continue furthering that slash line, as immediately the team will go towards the Gold Fury and take that one off the map after their prize of the Fire Giant.
And now where are they going to go? Is it clearing out tier 2 towers? Is it crossing the T's, dotting the I's, or is it immediately going for a Phoenix? Seems like split push seems to be the call. 4 in left, 1 in mid for Pandamonium. Cherio acting as the solo agent here. Does have a little bit of survivability, and I mean it when I say a little, just generally that wing blade and the spike shield for defense, so Cherio is exposed, but now left alone, could probably take out this tier 2 pretty quick.
Shoxy by himself in the Phoenix has to dash away. Lystemix falls through the portal, and Shoxy gets hit by the paralyzing spit from Lystemix, so he's down already to half health. And just as quickly as they wanted to go for the Phoenix, they'll have to back away. We're sort of looking for a target, but there's nobody to grab. He's waiting for somebody to open the door, saying, guys, please let me back in.
Shoxy Foxy is dropped down to half HP, but benefiting from the Fire Giant, should sustain that up pretty quickly. Worst Turtle losing out on the Ragnarok. Not the biggest deal, considering every single bead still available for Pandamonium, but now lose out on the ability to either burn that beads or make use of burnt beads by Lystemix's Stygian Torment. So, Pandamonium, all they have to do is play it a little bit slow here. They've got a fair bit of time on this Fire Giant power play, about 1 minute and 45 seconds left on it. So if they're able to work their way into the Phoenix, burn some of the resources of JustF6, disengage, and then re-engage, got to think that second fight is going to heavily favor Pandamonium.
Look at Hawk's positioning. He is sitting between the two, waiting to see which structure he's going to go against, and looks like it'll be the mid lane Phoenix. Worst Turtle has to leap away from Cherio, who's just got a little too much damage to deal with. Meanwhile, JustF6 now have to deal with Shoxy and Kana on the left side. Joshi down to half health, but the mid lane Phoenix is already gone. Hawk and Cherio now have to deal with Worst Turtle by themselves, and Kana can just dive the back line and take down Toddy with the help of the rest of his team. Worst Turtle falls down as the port goes through the portal for Hawk. Ultimate is going to get him and Cherio back to the left-hand side, but it may be too little too late for JustF6. Sotos gets stunned out, falls through the portal, has to use the beads, but the beads ain't going to save you from too much more damage. The Aegis will, just for the moment, but he will fall down as Kana takes him down. It's only Rotwin and Lystemix left to defend. Well, maybe it's just Lystemix who's trying to keep Cherio busy, but Cherio doesn't care as the rest of Pandamonium surge forward and take it game 2.
Game 2, clean performance here for Pandamonium, and Cherio is able to finish off Lystemix on the tail end of that one. JustF6 made some good strides in P's and B's and in play on field in Game 2. Early aggression was there. They were able to defend a couple rotations of their own buffs. They made proactive plays around the objectives, but at every turn, it just felt like Pandamonium had the pressure, and a lot of that pressure came from the massive lead that they were allowed to accrue in mid. Hawk is the issue, and he needs to be addressed. You can't allow this man to continually find 3 or 4 level leads 2 games in a row. Shame on you.
They did better this game, however. And at 13 minutes, they were even. They weren't behind 5,000, 6,000 gold, 10,000 experience, whatever it may be for it. They were able to fight back, at least for the first half of it. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish breaking down Game 2 and get set up for the rest of the day. Well, new roster and new faces don't seem to deter Pandamonium. They're able to clean this set up with a nice 2-0 victory off the back of just straight up raw damage and carry coming out of their new mid laner Hawk. Made it look real easy here in game 2. It was a nice fight back from JustF6 to start game number 2, but it just wasn't enough. Pandamonium able to come out 2-0 to end the set. J-Mac and Mifflin with me one more time to finish breaking down this set for the day, and I think the easiest way to break it down is probably just you got to ban Hawk.
Yeah, Hawk was allowed to do too much. Worth noting that Hawk is coming from the ADC role, J-Mac. That is one of his first performances that I've seen from him inside of the mid lane, and well, it was a convincing one. I've got great hopes for this player going into the future, and I've got great hopes for this team. And that said, I think they look incredibly good. I think Pandamonium does a very good job in this match. Cherio didn't. Cherio didn't have a great game. Cherio was essentially a non-factor for the first 10 or so minutes of this one. Well, maybe post 10 minutes. There was a point in this game where Worst Turtle pulls ahead about 3 levels, 13 to Cherio's 10, and from there Cherio wasn't able to do quite much, and it didn't really affect the team too negatively, did it, when you've got a workhorse like Hawk just pulling them along.
And a new breath of life out of Shoxy as well, who's previously, I believe, as we mentioned, all the way back at the beginning of the day, replaced by Emilzy for a short time for Pandamonium, and then he got thrown over to Elysium, and well, he's looking just as strong as he did before, looking a little bit more like that former second seed team that we saw out of Pandamonium in phase number 1. This new roster, this new fight back that they have, seems to be working out pretty well for them.
Yeah, these guys are so clean inside of the team fight. I have to imagine they are. Hawk was allowed to just free cast every single fight, and that doesn't happen unless your front line is creating infinite space. 10, 1, and 9, 19 affected kills does Yanis have, and well, he looks pretty good for it. Damage output certainly there as well, sitting at the 23,000 damage mark. Lestemix right behind him at 22,000, but we're not going to count him. That's a soul laner. All that damage is fake.
It's true. It really is. I mean, soul laners, they sit in their lane for, 10, 15 minutes. They slap each other around, and they come to inject and say, okay, well, back to the lane, back to get some farm for it. But looking forward for JustF6. They look stronger in game number 2. I like the change of pace from Worst Turtle going from the Camazotz, which was just raw damage output. All I do is damage, to getting a little bit more of that pseudo frontline with this Fenrir, able to pick people up, bring them back to the team. Now what I'm looking towards is maybe a little bit more of confidence from Sotos from that mid lane. He got left to free farm by himself, but he kind of got farmed a little bit. I think that might be the best way to put for it. If we take a look at the standings for it after this game has all broken down, we do see Pandamonium rise up from what was the tied third, fourth seed with 3 people at 1 and 2. Well, now they're sitting nice at that 50-50 mark with a 2-2 on their slash line.
Yeah, find themselves with that 50% win rate as you highlight, but still have a steep hill to climb if they want to topple the top of the leaderboard. Elysium and Team Joystick sitting in a clean 100% win rate, not a single loss to either of their names.
And as we take a look at the schedule, well, one of those teams is going to have a loss and by the end of this week, as Elysium and Team Joystick will be the next SCC matchup for the EU side. That'll be Saturday morning. Make sure to tune in that, as we also do see Herculean Hooves and Winter Dogs on the flip side for NA. That's going to be a big one if you want to tune in after SPL that day. But as far as the EU SCC goes, I got a little bit more confidence for Pandamonium in future matchups against Elysium. That first match that they played against Elysium not look so hot. It was just a lot of Elysium W-keying at them, but this new breath of fresh air, these new guys on the squad, even bringing back some of the old ones for them, it looks good. But SCC's not all we got today. We've got SPL coming up at 1 o'clock. We've got 2 massive sets. We got really the first half of this week is some of the biggest sets you're going to see all week. Jade Dragons and Camelot Kings, the 2nd and 3rd seeds, fighting against each other. Oni Warriors and Tartarus Titans as well today, battling for their seeding. But we're not going to get to the SPL just yet. That'll be at 1 o'clock. Instead, we're going to take it to a break, and when we come back, the SPL waiting room will be ready for you guys to stick around, and we'll be right back.
Special match of the week. It's going to be the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. You're not going to want to miss the action. Be there Thursday, 1 p.m.